clink of his spoon against the pristine white ceramic of his dessert bowl was the only sound in the world. You were always the talent, Wallace, but I'm the vision. And in this city, vision is the only thing that gets funded. Zane's smile was a thin, confident line, the kind you see on billboards for overpriced watches. Everything else, the murmur of the Michelin star restaurant, the amber glow of the Edison bulbs, our investor nodding slowly beside him, faded to a dull hum. I felt a strange calm settle over me like a sheet of ice forming on a still lake. I looked at him, my partner, the man I had built a company with from nothing. I see, I said, thank you for the clarity. We met at a tech incubator pitch night 4 years ago. Zane was on stage, a master of ceremonies for his own ambition, painting a picture of an app that could streamline creative collaboration. He was all charisma and grand gestures. The problem was, he had no product. I was in the back of the room, a ghost in a hoodie with a working prototype of that exact idea on my laptop. I was the code, he was the story. We decided we needed each other. Our first good memory was in a cramped, windowless office we sublet 3 months in. We'd been working for 36 hours straight, fueled by cold pizza and a case of Red Bull, trying to crack the core algorithm for our app, Synchrony. At 3:17 a.m., the code finally compiled. It worked. We didn't shout or high-five. We just sat there in the blue glow of the monitors, sharing a silence that felt more profound than any celebration. We were architects of something real. The first red flag came a month later. A small tech blog did a feature on us. Zane, in the interview, referred to Synchrony's core algorithm as something he conceptualized during a moment of inspiration. When I asked him about it, he just laughed it off. He said it was just simplifying the narrative. I told myself he was right. I was the talent, he was the vision. First 2 years were golden. We secured a 5-figure seed investment from an angel investor named Price, a man with more money than patience. We celebrated at a sticky-floored dive bar, drinking cheap beer and feeling like titans. I was the one pulling the all-nighters, refining the UI, squashing bugs, and pushing updates. Zane handled the networking. His calendar was a mosaic of power lunches at Oceanair and conferences in San Francisco. The AMX receipts he submitted were staggering, but he'd always frame it as the cost of building the brand. Who gives, who takes? The imbalance was subtle at first, then it became the foundation of our entire dynamic. I gave the work. He took the credit. The cracks started to show in small ways. He'd make an executive decision about a feature rollout without consulting me, citing a conversation he'd had with an industry titan. He was selling a story about Synchrony that was increasingly detached from the product I was actually building. I rationalized it. He was the business guy, the rainmaker. I was the engineer. We needed each other. The discovery was an accident, a moment of mundane digital housekeeping. I was searching our shared Google Drive for an old tax form when I found a folder named with just a single period. Inside, my blood ran cold. It contained draft legal documents for a new LLC, Nexus Innovations. There was a polished pitch deck for an app called Nexus. It was Synchrony, my code, my architecture, my design philosophy, but with a new logo and Zane listed as the sole founder and chief visionary officer. The documents were dated 6 months ago. For the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was Zane's quiet, diligent partner. By night, I was a detective. I hired a digital forensics expert, a sharp woman named Ms. Tanaka. She was methodical, quiet, and worth every penny of the $5,000 I paid her from my dwindling savings. She uncovered a shadow correspondence between Zane's personal email and our investor, Price. They were discussing a strategy to dissolve our current company, citing founder misalignment, and have Price's firm reacquire the intellectual property through the new Nexus entity. It wasn't just a plan to cut me out. It was a plan to erase me. The breaking point came at that celebratory dinner at Per C, meant to mark our 50,000th user milestone. Price was there, his face an unreadable mask. Zane, flush with confidence, decided it was time to realign. That's when he delivered his monologue. He said I was a brilliant coder, a true artisan, but that my risk aversion was holding the company back from its billion-dollar potential. You were always the talent, Wallace, but I'm the vision. And in this city, vision is the only thing that gets funded. Your code is just a commodity. Anyone can do that part. Price just watched me, waiting for a reaction, an outburst, a protest. I gave him none. That's when my mind went still and the entire plan locked into place. In that moment of absolute betrayal, I noticed a tiny, overlooked detail. On the table, Zane's laptop was open. I could just make out a calendar invite on his screen for 2 weeks from now. Project Nexus, final signing. The attendees included his lawyer's Price, and CC'd with a sloppy, arrogant flourish, Zane's personal Gmail address. The next day, I contacted Veronica Sterling, an attorney whose reputation for corporate litigation was legendary. She was expensive, and I had to sell my car to cover her retainer, but when I laid out the evidence, her eyes had a predatory gleam. Arrogance creates discovery trails, she said. a thin smile playing on her lips. We spent the next 12 days building an arsenal. Ms. Tanaka's forensic report became our Bible. Our evidence was concrete, irrefutable. We had 1. The hidden Nexus pitch deck from the shared drive. 2. 47 emails between Zane's personal account and Price, detailing the entire scheme. 3. Server logs showing Zane downloading the complete Synchrony codebase to an external hard drive, timestamped to the day after he filed the Nexus LLC paperwork. 4. Company credit card statements showing over $15,000 in payments to the law firm that set up his new company. 5. A sworn affidavit from a freelance designer he'd hired to create the Nexus logo, confirming Zane had presented the work as his own, and who, ironically, Zane had never paid. The final beautiful piece of leverage was a video clip from that first tech blog interview 4 years ago. Zane trying to affect humility, saying, "I'm just the salesman. Wallace is the architect. Every line of code is his genius." Veronica's strategy was surgical. First, we set a trap. She sent Zane's lawyers a standard, almost laughably weak cease and desist letter, focusing only on a minor breach of our partnership agreement regarding unapproved expenses. Zane's lawyer called her smug and dismissive. They saw it as a desperate amateur move. Confident that was the only bullet in my gun, they moved the Project Nexus signing meeting up by a full week. They walked right into it. I wasn't invited to the signing, of course. It was held in a sterile, glass-walled boardroom on the 48th floor of Price's investment firm. I waited in the lobby downstairs, watching the city move below, feeling nothing. At 2:15 p.m. my phone buzzed. A one-word text from Veronica. Now. I rode the elevator up, my reflection a pale ghost in the polished steel. I pushed open the heavy glass door to the boardroom. Zane, Price, and a team of 4 lawyers looked up, their pens poised over the signature pages. The air crackled with surprise. I walked to the head of the massive mahogany table. "For a meeting about my work, you forgot to include me." Zane recovered first, his face hardening into a mask of indignation. "Wallace, this is a private meeting. You're not a part of this future. I suggest you leave." Veronica, seated opposite him, simply slid a thin binder across the table. "That's the weak breach of contract claim." Zane's lawyer opened it and snorted. Then Veronica stood, connected her laptop to the room's massive 8K display and said, "And that was Exhibit A, now for the rest." The first image to appear on the screen was the Nexus pitch deck, my work under his name. Zane's face went from smug to white. Then came the emails, his own words detailing the fraud. Then the server logs, the bank statements. Price's face was stone. The final blow was the video. Zane's own voice, young and eager, filled the dead-silent room. "Wallace is the architect. Every line of code is his genius." Price didn't speak. He just stood up, looked at Zane with an expression of pure, undiluted contempt, and said, "You're a liability. The deal is dead." He walked out of the room without a backward glance. The lawyers began packing their briefcases in a hurried, clinical silence. Zane just sat there, staring at his own face on the screen, his mouth hanging slightly open. He finally turned to me, his eyes pleading. "Wallace, this is all just a misunderstanding." I leaned forward, my voice low and steady. "No, Zane. I think this is the first real understanding we've ever had." The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for him. The story of the Synchrony scandal hit the tech press within 24 hours. The legal proceedings were swift and brutal. Our original LLC was dissolved under terms Veronica drafted, which gave me sole ownership of all intellectual property. Price, desperate to avoid a lawsuit for conspiracy, not only backed away from Zane, but offered me a new, far more generous line of funding to rebuild, with me holding a 70% majority stake. Zane was left with nothing but his vision and a mountain of legal debt exceeding $150,000. 6 months later, I saw him. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was heading to a meeting and I stopped for coffee at a strip mall Starbucks, and there he was behind the counter wearing a stained green apron. He was calling out a name for a mobile order, his voice stripped of all its old bravado. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second. There was no fire, no anger, just the dull, hollowed-out exhaustion of a man who had become a commodity. I live in a new apartment now, with a view of the park. My new team is small, brilliant, and honest. We're launching Synchrony 2 next month, and the work feels clean again. There is a peace in the quiet hum of the servers, a calm that I earned. Zane told me that in our city, vision was the only thing that gets funded. He was right. He had a clear vision of a future without me in it. And in the end, that was the only vision he successfully funded.